Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor, and I guess we should have predicted it. Last night we spent a lot of time on this program talking about how Joe Biden is surely facing impeachment sooner rather than later. It was a bad news cycle for about 3 or 4 days there for the Bidens. So, of course, we had a new Trump indictment. Sure enough, just about an hour and a half after we went off the air in the dark of night, Fulton County, Georgia. Indictments for Donald Trump and many co-conspirators. Joining us right now is the spokeswoman for the Trump campaign, Liz Harrington. I want to get this right. Are you on the Trump campaign or with Mr. Trump personally?
Campaign.
Great. Thanks for joining us. And we start with you because this isn't a legal issue at this point. It's obviously a political issue.
Exactly right, Larry. And there's nothing legal in this sham. In fact, they released charges and counts before the grand jury had even met and had voted.
You know, we were going to talk about it on the air, and then they said, oh, that was fictitious, that wasn't real, we don't know how that happened, so, we disregarded it. Turns out it was very real.
It was the exact same fake sham charges. I mean, talk about a banana republic. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Yeah.
And it's very despicable, but of course it's all political. I mean, think of it, Larry. You have had, over the past couple of months, extremely credible evidence whistleblowers that have tied the Biden crime family to $10 million worth of bribes with Ukraine, other extortion, bribery with communist China, and the list goes on and on. The fact that Joe Biden was on the phone with these business partners and real crimes that the American people understand.
Yeah.
And then what do they try to pin on President Trump? They literally try to say it's a crime for sending a tweet to say you should watch this hearing on television that is exposing how corrupt the 2020 election is.
Well, Liz,
the unequal standards of justice is just mind-blowing.
If they had their way, they'd criminalize watching the hearing or even conducting the hearing.
That's next.
Yeah.
You better believe it.
Liz, one thing that I'm confused about, and I'm guessing that Mr. Trump is confused about it as well, is that everything that is cited here in terms of the criminal actions, allegedly, in this indictment occurred between Election Day, November 3rd, 2020, and January 6th, 2021. So here we are nearly 3 years later. There literally is no more evidence. Everything occurred almost 3 years ago. What took them so long? Why now?
Why now? Because we're in the middle of the next election that they want to interfere on. That's what this is about. It's about 2024. President Trump is clearly the front runner, and he's beating all the other Republican candidates by 50, 60 points. He's beating Joe Biden by 7, by 10 points, by 19 points with independents. And that is what this is about. They are so afraid of the American people choosing President Trump once again to return to the White House. So they want to bog him down. They want to try to make him extend unlimited resources on these shams and having to fight this lawfare. They're using it for propaganda to smear him, to try to damage him. And this has been going on, Larry, as you know, for 8 years now, ever since he came down the escalator. And every time he's totally vindicated. That will be true in this case as well. But in the process, they're exposing themselves of how corrupt this system is and just why they want to take him out so much, because they're trying to protect themselves.
So just from a logistical standpoint, I don't know if you have had this conversation yet within the brain trust of the campaign apparatus, but we've got now 4 different jurisdictions with indictments. Right or wrong, those cases are moving forward. And the president certainly has a right to focus on his defense, as every American does. Have you figured out logistically how he's going to be able to do that effectively and at the same time mount a campaign for the presidency?
Well, look, he's such an amazing fighter. There's nothing that's going to stop him. There's nothing that they can throw at him that will derail his campaign or derail the American people. The American people are firmly behind him. This is the greatest political movement we've had in our history. So, look, we have great legal teams that are fighting every different angle of these shams. I mean, the fact that they're brought in the most biased jurisdictions in the country, the fact that they're brought without alleging any real crimes, with very biased judges, trying to ram these show trials essentially through to get like you pointed out, Larry, it took them 2.5 years to bring all these cases. And yet they want a trial in what, 6 weeks?
Right.
6 months?
Right.
I mean,
Thank you.
they've had 2 years.
They've gathered evidence for 2.5, almost 3 years, and let's go to trial by November 1st. Right.
It's incredible. And so, well, you know what, though? We've gathered evidence as well for the past several years. The American people have, patriots working on the ground, just exposing how fraudulent these elections were. And this case in Georgia in particular, they're really opening up a can of worms that I think they're going to regret, because nowhere were our elections more corrupted, more dishonest than in Fulton County, Georgia. So
and that is part of the defense. He has every right to bring data and information and evidence to the table to show, no, I had a reasonable suspicion that this election did not go well. I want to ask you about the Secretary of State of Georgia, because much is centered in this indictment around that phone conversation the president had with the Secretary of State. And really they focus on 1 or 2 lines. But during that call, and jog my memory if I've got this wrong, didn't Mr. Trump specifically say that I just want a fair counting of the ballots? I mean, he kept repeating that over and over again, right? He wasn't asking him to cheat. He in fact said, no, this needs to be done fairly.
He, direct quote, said, we just want to get to the truth. It's simple. He also said that all I want is an honest election.
Honest.
And he was bringing up, there were so many lawyers on that call. It's a perfect phone call. Nobody objected to anything he said. And everything he was presenting in that call was brought to him by certified accountants, very serious people, lawyers that were looking at the numbers and saying, this doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And Brad Raffensperger never provided the proof why anything that President Trump said was wrong. Because it wasn't. He just said, your numbers are wrong. Your numbers are wrong. And he said, okay, well, show us, meet with our team. Give us the truth. Give us the facts. He never did. And since then, Brad Raffensperger has been presented with so much more damning evidence about the counts not matching, about thousands of false Biden votes within the hand recount. And what has he done? They've swept it under the rug. They will not correct the record. Those false results are still to this day on the Secretary of State's website, and there's been no accounting whatsoever. So he's got a lot to answer for in all of this.
Liz Harrington, I've got a minute left, but you said the American people are on his side. The polls certainly show that the American people think that these indictments are politically motivated. That said, you know that this is about a very small margin of voters who live in the suburbs in certain states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Virginia, who I keep hearing from the smart people in this town that they're suffering from Trump fatigue. Even if they think it's political, they just want it to be over with. What's the political answer to that?
I think what they're really suffering from, what people are really tired of, is the gas prices, the endless wars, the lack of a border, the crime. You know what they're really just so frustrated with? The fact that it's been 2 years since Afghanistan and no one's been fired. The fact that they're just running our country into the ground. People recognize when you're doing something right, they come after you. They try to stop you. And that's why they try to stop President Trump the most, because he's effective. And he delivered the most amazing historic first term. And the second term is going to blow it away. We're going to get a booming economy. We're going to have our secure border again. We're going to end these endless wars and stop sending all these billions overseas. We're going to make America great again. And the American people really recognize that's what they care about. And they really care about this corruption as well. And that is a big priority to clean up, and the people get it.
Liz Harrington, spokeswoman for Trump 2024. Thanks for joining us. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.